Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's video on asset management using doForms. Today, we're going to review a simple check-in, check-out asset management system that can be created and managed using doForms. This type of system will be great for anyone who has a database or a spreadsheet of assets or pieces of equipment that are regularly checked in or out of a warehouse by your workers. All you need to do to get started is a doForms advanced license and a spreadsheet or database of assets and equipment with their current inventory statuses. So the first step that we are going to need is in order to get an asset management like you see on the screen here, which gives you the ability to check in and out assets, to move assets from one location to another, and to report on these assets on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. So the first thing that we would need to do to get started is we would need to create a database form within inside of doForms and create it as a form-based lookup. So what that basically means is we're going to create a form that is similar to our export of our database or our Excel document that we're currently using. We're going to create a form that has all the same fields, so that way we can import our information into doForms, which enables us to make modifications to the database. So for example, let's say I'm a small company, and I only have 4 pieces of equipment or 5 assets here. Let's say I have an Excel document that gives me, they're currently in inventory, what their IDs are, what their descriptions are, and what location they're in. So I can start out with a document that looks similar to this. And I basically want to recreate a form in doForms that has all of these data fields. So you can see on my screen here, if I just preview my database form, I simply created a form that has a status of in inventory or checked out, an asset ID, an asset description, a location with 1 to 5. And I added 2 additional fields for last transaction date and last transaction user. Once I've created this form, I want to make this form a form-based lookup inside of doForms. To do this, I would go to Lookup Data and Build Forms. I'd click on the New button. And instead of hitting Upload, which would just allow you to upload the Excel document right in, I'm going to use Form. And when I select Use Form, it prompts me to select a project and a form that I'd like to use. And the most important setting that you need to check on here is to update automatically. This update automatically setting is basically going to update your lookups automatically as soon as you make transactions to them. So as we're checking things in and out, all of our users that have access to the system are going to see those status updates live. I'm not going to go ahead and save this because I already have this asset database saved as a lookup. But to finish off the process here, you would just click the Save button. So I'm going to cancel out. And now that we have that form created and it's a form-based lookup, if I jump over to View Data, I can take a look. So what I've done is I've basically taken this Excel document, and I have then come into View Data, gone to File, and selected Import from Excel, and I imported this information into the form. So now my asset database has 5 records in it with asset IDs ranging from 1 to 5 in the different locations they're in. And you'll notice that the transaction dates and the users are all blank because this is a new system and this is the first time we're using it. This is just the current statuses of those assets that I've imported. Once we have this information imported in here, we now need to create a form, a transaction form that allows us to check in or check out that makes modifications to this form. So how we do that, if I jump back over to my build form screen here, and I'm just going to open up my asset management form. So how we do that is I simply set up a form that looks like this, where you come in and the first question asks you, what transaction are you doing? Are you trying to check something out, or are you trying to check something back in? Depending on what you choose, you get different options. So for example, if I choose check in, I get a drop down of the asset, I get to set the location, and the last user is currently defaulting to me, but this could be a drop down or a free entry or anything like that. The check out process allows you to pick an asset that's currently in inventory and give a reason for checking it out. There's also some logic built behind these transactions. So for example, the check-in form only allows me to check in pieces of equipment that are currently marked as checked out. So in other words, I'm not able to check in a piece of equipment that's currently in inventory because it's already there. There's no need to check it in. Same concept goes for the checkout form. The checkout form has logic built in that says I can only select assets that are currently in inventory. I can't check something out that somebody's already checked out. And basically what we're doing behind the scenes here is we are using the retrieve and modify capability, which comes standard with the doForms advanced licenses. to basically make modifications to this database as we submit transactions. So what we're basically doing here is, if I scroll down to my retrieve and modify field at the bottom here. So for the checkout, for example, I'm basically finding the asset ID and I'm changing the status to checked out. I'm clearing the location. I'm replacing the last transaction date and replacing the last transaction user. So basically what's going to happen is when I check something out, it's going to mark it from in inventory to checked out. It's going to remove the location because it's no longer in inventory. And it's going to put who the person was that checked it out and what the date was. Same concept goes for checking something back in. When we check something back in, it's going to mark it as in inventory with the location that we've set. And then same concept there. It's going to put who checked it back in and the date that they checked it back in. So to show you guys just a live example of this, I'm going to come back to my inventory over here, my asset database. And you can see that I have all 5 assets currently in inventory. So when I come over to my form, and I'm just going to refresh my form here, I have this form on the screen here as a form link. So this form link would be great for organizations who, especially in today's day and age with COVID going around, your employees might not necessarily be able to go to the warehouse to request pieces of equipment or request assets. So this form link is a great tool to be able to email out these forms and give them the ability to do these requests from home. Also, if you're a warehouse guy, you can also put this application onto a, handheld scanner. If you have assets that have barcodes on them and you want to scan them in and out, that can absolutely be accommodated as well. So what I'm basically going to do here is I am going to come in, and since all of my assets are currently in inventory and there's nothing to check back in, I'm going to pick the checkout option. So the checkout option, I'm basically going to get a drop down here of all 5 of my assets. So let's just say I pick asset 1. It's going to automatically put the description and the location it's currently in. I can say the transaction date is for today. And my reason is taking this asset to a job in New Jersey. Once I click check out, a couple of things are going to happen. So first and foremost, this form has now been submitted. I now have a transactional record that says, Anthony checked this out at this date, and here was the reason for it. I also can check back to my inventory, and you'll notice that for asset number 1, it has now changed from in inventory to checked out. The location has been cleared because it's no longer in the inventory, so I can no longer see it anywhere in the location. And it's updated my last date and my last transaction user to myself. So effectively now this asset has been checked out. If I come back into my checkout form, I should no longer be able to see asset number 1 because it's already been checked out by another user. So for example, if I come to check out, you'll notice there's only 2, 3, 4, and 5 here because asset 1 is not available, right? So now let's say it's a couple of days later and we need to come back in and check that asset back in. So same concept goes for the check-in here. I should only see the 1 for asset number 1 that's checked out because everything else is in inventory. So if I click on my asset ID, you'll notice that I only have the 1 option because there's only 1 asset that has the status of checked out. When I pick asset number 1, it allows me to set a location. So in this example, I can pick any one of the 5 locations I have. This can easily be customized to be put back into the same location you took it from. There's a lot of flexibility in here and things that we're able to do. So I'm just going to put it back into location 1, set my transaction date, and check it back in. So now what's going to happen when I check it back in is behind the scenes, the retrieve and modify is going to update and now say, hey, that asset is now back in inventory and it's been placed in location 1, and it was placed in location 1 on this date by this user. So what you've basically just seen is the ability to have your employees from home or on a device come in, check out a piece of equipment, use it for a couple of days, couple of weeks, whatever it may be, and then check it back into the warehouse, all documented using doForms. And not only do you have the database that has all of the current live statuses, if I jump over to my main project into my transaction form, I also have all the individual transaction records. Now, what we're basically able to do with this here is using our report writer is we can have daily, weekly, or monthly reports sent to you. Those reports can be a screenshot or a full output of your current inventory on a given day for a given week. It can also have reports given to you by the transaction. So you can get a report of all the assets that were checked out today or checked back in today. So there's a lot of flexibility in this system. Everything that you're seeing here in this system is customizable. So this is just a very basic example with, not a lot of data fields up here. But let's say you have assets that have, more in-depth detail. Maybe there's a size, a weight, a color, things like that. You can add as many fields as you need to basically make this database as fully functional as possible. You can also even add additional information, like, maybe in the database, when somebody checks something out, if you wanted to see the reason that it was checked out, you could also put that in your database here. The main takeaway here is that this lookup, because we're using it in doForms, is now updated across all of your forms. So if you have a bunch of employees who basically need to see what's in inventory and what's not, as soon as something gets updated in the portal here, it's also getting updated out on the mobile devices as well as all the form links. So basically at any given point in time, your users can see the current inventory of your assets or equipment, what's checked out, what's available, and gives them the ability to check it in or check it back out. So just to kind of finalize everything that we've talked about here, everything you see is customizable. If you are interested in a system like this, please reach out to your doForms representative. We will absolutely help you get set up. We can give you support. We have videos and documentation around all of these things as well. Please check out our doForms video library on our website. There's a lot of retrieve and modify capabilities that we review in some webinars on there. And thank you for coming out to the webinar today. We look forward to working with you. Thanks. Bye.